Hi, my name is Şahin Bulgurcu, and today we are going to learn about TPRS storytelling. But first, what is TPRS storytelling? TPRS storytelling is a technique that is used to teach language, but unlike other methods, like forcing our students to speak when they're not even ready, or just explaining them some grammar rules that they won't even need in the future, we are going to focus on giving them as much as comprehensible input. And how are we going to give them comprehensible input if they don't know anything in English? Of course, we are going to get help from our best friends, which are mimes and gestures. We are going to make the meaning clear and comprehensible through mimes and gestures. We are going to demonstrate the meanings of new words or some phrases through mimes and gestures before we start the story. Also, TPRS storytelling is, in my opinion, actually TPRS story building, because we don't prepare a story before the lesson and tell the story to our students throughout the lesson, but we ask our students questions and elicit some information from them to build the story during the lesson. And sometimes, for more abstract words and phrases, we might use some translations to make everything as comprehensible as possible, because that is our main objective. If we keep our content and story comprehensible, our students will understand and thus learn the language. A TPRS lesson should have a few key features. First of all, a TPRS story should be engaging. How are we going to engage our students? Yes, that's right, you're thinking it. We are going to ask them questions. But are we going to ask them difficult questions or confusing questions? No, definitely not. We are going to ask them as simple questions as possible. Generally, yes/no questions and either/or questions. We don't use why and how for early stages, because we don't force our students to form up full sentences or some sentence structures that they don't even know yet. So we are going to keep our questions as simple as possible. These are going to be our comprehension checking questions. And the other key feature that we are going to keep in mind is that our story should be surprising. This is your story, so you shouldn't just walk around using some facts like yellow cats or I don't know, white cars that go on the road, but we should use I don't know, maybe a car that flies but spills water. I don't know, anything is possible. Just use your imagination to keep the story surprising and interesting, because the students shouldn't lose their interest from the story. They should be interested in the story and they should wonder what's gonna happen next. That's how you keep them engaged and interested in the learning process. And also, we should make the story, thus the lesson, as fun as possible. Because if we keep our story and our lesson fun, our students will forget that they are in a lesson. They are learning a foreign language, but they are going to see it just as a fun activity or a game. And that's how we lower the affective filter, and we can benefit the most out of a lesson. And the most important part of a TPRS storytelling lesson: circling. Circling is not just a phase, actually. We, during the story building part, we elicit information from the students. We also circle. For example, I say there is a man. The man's name is Jake. And I ask the students, okay, is the man's name Jack? I get the answer, yes. Is the man's name Ahmed? No. And while I give the right answer, I use my gesture as positive, yes. But if I use my gesture like this, I won't go on and change it like that later on. I just use it yes, or I don't go around change my yes to this. If I use my yes like this, I will keep on doing like this. And if I use my no with this gesture, I will keep on doing the same gesture every time I give a no answer. So during the circling, which is not just after the story but during the story as well, I focus on the comprehensibility of my questions, and I don't expect my students, I want it, but I don't expect my students to form up full sentences. I just want them to answer one word, yes, no, or is the man's name Jack or Ahmed? Jack. Yes, that's all I'm looking for from my students. And that is how you keep your students in love with the language learning process, and in time they will be fluent speakers naturally. You won't even realize when that's happened. And that's all. Thank you for listening to me.